I'm excited about this episode of the Elite Recruiter podcast. I have my guest, Parker Chaney, with me, and we are going to talk about what can happen and what you can do when your back is against the wall. So I'm excited to have Parker on here because he jumped into this business. He didn't jump into like a recruiting chair. He jumped into being a recruiting business owner with zero recruiting experience after getting laid off twice. And I'll let him share the story, but he, like, didn't make a placement for the first 8 months and now has figured out systems, branding, technology, where he's consistently pulling in 50K plus months. And because of everything, is working, if he wanted to, can work less than 5 hours a week because he's figured out the systems in place to be a superhuman recruiter. So, Parker, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
So, I know you're probably going to tell your story about you having your back against the wall and you had nowhere else to go except for fighting your way back out. But before we get there, let's talk about what you did before you got into the recruiting space.
Yeah. So, guess kind of a long, short story. I started doing manual labor right out of high school. Took a year off, quote unquote, and really didn't have any plans to go back. But that's kind of what I told everybody. Wasn't a huge fan of school, and so right out of high school, got a job making hot tubs, and it was hot. It was $10 an hour. I thought, hey, I'm gonna start a family. I'm making all this money, going from 7.25 to $10 an hour. I thought, oh my goodness, I'm rich. I can start a family. Turns out that's not the case. That's not a lot more money. And so did that for 2 years. Right before I got married to my high school sweetheart, um, I got a job at a CNC shop and it was great. It was air conditioned. I could wear jeans and a sweatshirt all day long, put my headphones in, be with myself, watch YouTube. I was like, this is great. I'm never leaving. Turns out $16 an hour, still not enough to raise a family. And so I ended up switching jobs to a different CNC machine shop and was making like $25 an hour there, thinking, oh my goodness, we can start a family now. Turns out still not enough money. And at that point, I was kind of like I don't enjoy this anymore, and I can't make enough money unless I'm working 80 hours a week. I want to be around my wife. I want to have a kid. Like I've got to figure something out. I didn't go to school. I have no degree or anything like that, no skills other than just manual labor. And I thought like, okay, what can I do? And just over some self-reflection of like, what do I actually enjoy? I don't know what I enjoy. And the only thing I could really go off is always been the funny, witty guy and really easy to make people laugh. And so one of the guys was like, hey, you should maybe do sales because they talk to people a lot and like you're really good at making people laugh. And so that's kind of like the start to all this journey a couple years ago. And so for about 6 months, 12 hours a day, 6, 7 days a week, just listen to any and all sales books I could find. I probably listened to How to Win Friends and Influence People like 20 times at least, like within a couple weeks. And just kind of just soaked up as much as I could. And I kind of just let everybody know there, hey, I'm going to get into sales. I don't want to be here. I'm getting into sales. And it was kind of like, yeah, yeah, okay, whatever, good luck with that. And ended up telling my boss there after getting written up like a couple days before I quit. And he was like, hey, like, what's going on? And I was just like, I really don't want to be here. And he's like, yeah, I know. And he's like, what do you want to do? And I was like, I want to get into sales. And he said, what the F are you going to do in sales? And I was like, I'm going to make a lot more money than I'm making here. And he's like, oh, you can make 100 grand here, blah, 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 blah. I made 100 grand. It's like, I can't, there's no way I can't do that with 80 hours a week. Everybody here is working third shift, 80 hours a week, hates their job, doesn't want to be around their family, is tired all the time. And that was kind of like, hey, I don't want to do this. I want to have a good family. I want to be around them. I want to make money in 40 hours or less. And so after some applying, got a job at a logistics company in freight brokerage, which I won't go into detail. A lot of people don't know what that is, but within the first 3 months of that, I was bringing in 40,000 in gross profit for them every single month. And it was like, oh, okay, this makes sense. Like the sales thing, it's not too difficult. I mean, it is, but this is kind of like where I'm supposed to be. And then that went really well for about 10 months. Ended up getting a job doing the same thing remote, making like 70,000 a year or so. And that was like, okay, now I think I'm making enough to have a family. Let's let's start having a kid. I'm working from home. I can be there as much as I want. And that was like the goal. She can not work. We can have a kid. I'm here. Got that job. It was going good and ended up getting pregnant. And he was due in August of last year. He just turned one. And on April 11th, not that I remember the date, got a call saying like, "Hey, we've decided to go in a different direction, and I'm sorry you got your baby on the way, and you're going to lose insurance and everything like that, and your wife just quit your job. We're going to have to let you go." And so that was a really fun feeling about the one time in my life I have to be a provider and make all this money and care for the family. I'm not. So that was a very fun feeling. Where the one time that you have to, yeah, you have to be the provider, you're not. And so that was not a fun feeling. And so that was when I decided like, okay, I need to figure something else out. This is not a fun feeling. I've got the baby coming. We're running out of money. I didn't even know how to apply for unemployment. I didn't know about unemployment, like nothing about insurance or Medicaid. Like I was so in the dark and didn't even end up filing for months after that. And then still didn't have a job a couple months before that. He was born on the 8th. And then that night, I just kind of just like, looking at him, just like, hey, I got to figure this out and like, I'm going to figure it out for you. And so from there, I guess 2 weeks before he was born, got a job and flew to New Jersey. And 60 days into that job, I'm laying at bed at night. My recruiting business is starting to get busy. I'm working full time. I'm tired. I'm not sleeping. I got the baby we're taking care of. And just everything altogether is overwhelming. I was like, look, I don't know if you're religious or not, but, praying like, hey, show me what you want me to do. Like, can you make it clear? Show me what you want me to do on a Sunday night. I'm like, just like recruiting business is getting busy. Work's getting busy. I'm tired. I'm a father. Like, I'm trying to get this figured out. What do you want me to do? And turns out, be careful what you wish for, because that morning, that morning, I get a Zoom invite from the HR and the vice president. Get on there and basically said the same thing. We're going to go in a different direction. We're looking to do some separate stuff, and just you're not a part of that plan. And so that was really fun. But it was like a weird, calm feeling. Like, okay, this is what's supposed to happen. I kind of did it to myself because I asked for guidance, and he gave it to me. And funny enough, it was the day that my first candidate started their job, and so I had 30 days to just scrape by, and they ended up paying like a week late, but still did that. And then the first month, which is 8 months after I started the business, I made 36 grand. And so that was just like completely life changing. But that's kind of how I got into it. Long story short. But yeah,
So, and I want to, we were chatting about this offline. So 8 months of your recruiting business where you were learning the business and you still did not make a single placement, but you were also doing this outside of a day job or in between, like working, not working, but you had a day job kind of supplementing your income.
yeah, yeah. So I was working full time, probably 40, 50 hours a week remote. And then you throw in also having a kid, first time dad as well. And so it was fun. He, would sleep maybe 45 minutes at a time. So we're waking up. We got the lights on in the room to make it feel like daytime because he wouldn't sleep at night. And so you got that, having absolutely no idea what I'm doing. I have no money to invest in a coach or anything like that. And just YouTube University, watching videos online, kind of just figured it out one way or another. But I knew like, as long as I don't quit, it's going to work out one way or another. And so just kind of just at 1% better every day, and the just one more day mentality where as long as I can keep going on, you know what I mean?
Okay. So no placements for 8 months. Then after that, 300K came in the door. Your entire,
36K.
or 36K, but like
Yeah.
it grew to
Yep.
300, it grew to 300,000, like shortly afterwards. Mhm. Your learning was all from YouTube.
Yeah. So the initial 8 months was all from YouTube. Ben Nader, rest in peace. I mean, I think that's where everybody starts. He was honestly still one of the only people that pops up when you search anything, other than you and a couple other guys that have popped up, and learned some stuff from him, and, watched his contract video, copied it while he's talking, um, did some emails and stuff, found a most placeable candidate on Indeed, didn't even reach out to him, sent in blank resumes, scheduled them on Sundays to send out throughout the week because I'm working, took calls on my lunches. Like it was rough. It was rough. And yeah, when I answered my cell phone, I didn't have a work phone for either the business or work. I didn't know if it was somebody calling me for the recruiting business or for the business, or as I was working for my job.
I just, I think that's awesome. Two, I want to share that story because so many people, when they hear about, hey, you need to become a recruiter, or I would like to become a recruiter, the number one piece of advice that I see is go work at an agency for a few years, which is great advice because most of us, that's what we did. That's how we learned the business. Somebody else kind of taught us that. But I also think like it's 2023. There are different ways to learn how to build a business and how to grow your career outside of making somebody else money.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. I'm not a huge fan of working for people. So I guess that kind of helps. And maybe that's why I got laid off twice, but not a huge fan of working for other people and being told what to do. So it all worked out in the end, and not fun, but it all worked out.
And at least for the listeners, what niche are you in right now?
So I'm in like a sub niche of logistics called freight brokerage, which not a lot of people know about. And I think the biggest thing that worked is I was in the industry before, and they're not one that are really susceptible to outsiders. If you don't know what they're talking about, they don't want you, they don't want to talk with you. And so I think that was kind of my in, and there was a lot of variables to that. Um, Picking the right niche, but that's the industry I'm in. And like I said, they don't like outsiders. And so it kind of just worked out. Like I'm not going to go recruit for a doctor or a nurse. I have no idea what that is, you know? And so, that helped a lot for sure.
And one more thing for the listeners before we jump into something else. You don't have a college degree, right?
No, no college degree. I think I had
And
like a 2.6 GPA in high school or something like that,
so,
maybe.
so no college degree. You're having like 50K plus months. Yeah, like you're seeing success. Like this is what I love so much about the recruiting industry is you don't need all that educational stuff that I went through, unfortunately, to succeed. You just need to like learn, have some grit, have some conversations, and hop on the phone and just go, or email and just go. So once again, like I'm excited. Anybody that I have on this podcast, that's like, hey, I, I didn't get the college degree.
Exactly. Yeah. It's not necessarily needed unless you're going to something specialized. And I think even more these days that it's becoming more and more just not important, and people want to see results rather than degrees. And so I think as long as you can provide results, whether you're working for yourself or somebody else, that's all you really need to do. And so and just take an action regardless. And so that's pretty much what it comes down to.
So one of the things I kind of want to dig deep into, you've utilized systems and technology to grow your firm, and you had to do it because a young one and you had a full time job, but everything that foundational stuff that you put in place has helped with your success. Like, do you call that like some of this like your superpower?
So I guess some of my superpowers would be like just being confident, like overly confident in a way, like knowing without a doubt that I'm like convicted, like, hey, this is going to work out as long as I keep going. And I think the best way to show yourself and build real confidence is to do something. And from your actions, you're showing yourself, hey, I am who I say who I am. And so that's been one of the biggest things, like over and over again. Like I believed it in my head, but then once I hit that $36,000 month, my very first month I made money, I was like, I know how to make $10 million. I know how to make $100 million. Like I'm a fully confident, even though might be a little bit delusional. The confidence went through the roof, and I think that's one of the biggest things. And then the other thing would be, I've never really cared about what other people think of me. I don't know if that's just not being an a-hole way or anything. Excuse my French, but I I've never really cared. And so, like sending personalized videos is what I do a lot, and sending them to people to meet them in the industry, get new business, sending them to candidates. Like people just aren't comfortable doing stuff like that. And I just think that, okay, well, if I'm going to make money and this is going to help me, it's going to be easier. Why am I not going to do it? You know, why wouldn't I do something that's going to make me money, make my life better, and help me reach my goals? I really don't care what anybody thinks because they're still where they're at, and I'm doing things, you know?
Well, and I think it's those like personalized videos, and that personalized outreach also has a much higher impact than, you know, sticking 50,000 people and 50,000 different industries into one funnel and
Yep,
hoping you're
exactly.
going to,
Exactly.
hoping you're going to get like a,
Yep.
you know, one person out of 50K is going to get like, hey, I need help.
Yeah. Yeah. I honestly, I don't do any outreach at all now at all. It's all personal brand. Going to eventually, obviously, because you got to be able to sustain that. But with LinkedIn branding and having that really big and referrals coming in from people that I don't even recruit for, I mean, things are going well. I mean, I'm turning business away. And so it's nice to have that authority and be able to tell people, hey, I don't want to work with you or I can't because whatever. And I get to work with the best type of clients. And it's honestly, I just think I got not lucky, but I read the right things at the right time and learned the right things at the right time. And although it did take me 8 months to learn anything, I think, it eventually, like, once the momentum is built, I mean, it just takes off.
Well, and one more question into like your beginning story. Why did you not quit during that 8-month time period that you didn't make a single dollar?
I just knew that if I was going to do it any time, now would be the time. And I also think having a kid is like, I tell everybody, you want to accomplish stuff in life and you're not motivated, have a child. Like, there's that's one of the easiest, not say easiest ways, but like, you want some motivation, you look that child in the face and you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing, and you're not where you're supposed to be. And I've got a sticky note on in my office that says set the standard. And so becoming the man and father that I want my son to be is the biggest thing. And so if I'm not doing it, but I expect him to, that's not the case. And so I need to be able to set the standard for him no matter what it is. And yeah, like I said, have a kid is the
I don't.
biggest thing. Like, I don't know what I would do without him.
So outside of advice of having a kid, what
Yeah.
advice would you give to somebody else that's going through that slow start? That's 5, 6 months in, they haven't seen the success. What advice would you give them to keep on doing what they're doing?
I think that anything good takes time and you're going to be confused for a very long time and you're still going to be confused. You're never not going to be. Things are going to start making more sense. You might be less confused, but the longer you can put work into something, the higher the reward's going to be. And that's kind of how I always thought about it. Like, as long as I keep on doing it and keep watering the plant, like eventually it's going to start growing. And so, like, no matter what, if I don't stop watering the plant, it's going to start growing, whether it's now or in a couple years. I don't really care. Like, I've got no choice. I've got to figure this out.
Awesome. So, like, I know one of the things that we also were chatting about beforehand is like there's so much advice out there when it comes to like recruiting, comes to building a business, comes to doing these things. And I loved what you said. It was just like many times you know what to do.
Mhm.
You just need to do that. Can you explain that to the listeners?
Yeah. And so I think our brain tries to protect us from doing something that doesn't feel good. And when you do something like learning something new, it doesn't feel good. You feel stupid. You don't, you feel idiotic. Like, it's not fun. And your brain's sitting there just spazzing and you can't figure it out. And it's going to take you, I think it's like at least 20 hours to figure that out. And so I think I got a little sidetracked there, but yeah, you just need to just keep pushing through it.
Okay. Awesome. And one more thing that I loved in the conversation that we had earlier on about being self-aware and how important that is. I think that's been a huge theme for a lot of people in 2023 is self-awareness. What is learning self-awareness and what does self-awareness mean to you?
So I think if you don't ever think about how you're feeling or why you do or do not like something, that doesn't help you at all. You can say, "Hey, I don't like my job." Well, why don't you like your job? Have you thought about that? Oh, well, my boss sucks. Okay, well, why does he suck? Okay, what about the job do you not like? Um, Being self-aware, like, I think maybe because I'm 25 and my brain's fully developed now, it just like finally hit me. But just it's as simple as I eat something like frozen pizza, for example, which I used to do a lot because it was easy and fast. Every time I would eat it, I would feel like crap. I feel like crap. All my thoughts were super negative because my brain's slowing down. I'm processing all these horrible foods. My brain's slowing down. All of a sudden, all my thoughts are negative, and I was like, okay, that doesn't make any sense. I need to eat something that is healthier and won't affect me that way. And so it's like, okay, well, that makes sense. How can I clear my mind up? My mind's foggy. Go online, look it up, go for a walk, start working out. So I've started working out. I've lost like 80 pounds or so in the last year, I think. And so thank you. Yeah, almost hit 300. Should have hit it when I got the chance. But yeah, lost like 80 pounds. And so just being reflective on the way you're feeling and what you think about things. Like, if you don't ask yourself, you're not going to know. And so you just gotta. That's just the biggest thing is being self aware, no matter what it is.
Okay. Great. And I never like to ask people their age, but you mentioned that you're 25.
Mhm.
So I don't want to say this is like a common theme for people in my age group and older. I'm in about a
You look
week going
younger
to
than
be,
me.
in a week, I'm going to be 40.
Oh my goodness, no way. Well, hey, happy birthday.
Thank you. But and when this goes live, it'll be like definitely after my birthday. But I've seen this common theme with people in like your age group, around your age. You guys are able to utilize technology and like all sorts of different tools to be able to like almost like self multiply better than like my elder millennial Gen X generation
Mhm.
out there. Like, what kind of tools are you using? You want to talk about that?
Yeah, so it's pretty simple. I use Loxo for our ATS. That works great. It's got everything you need. Yes, it's more expensive, but it's going to save you time. Spend the extra $100 a month, right? It's going to save you so much more time. We use a software called Skylead, which is great for LinkedIn outreach, adding 70 to 100 people a day on there and getting past LinkedIn's max out of 100 a week. That's been huge. I mean, I've gotten 8,000 followers in like since January, I think. So it's absolutely crushing it. Um, and then just, I mean, Google Docs, staying organized, that's pretty simple. And then one of the biggest things that I use right now, everybody wants to know AI, AI, AI. I use this program called Typing Mind, and it's basically just like a new user interface for ChatGPT where I can save all my prompts. I have different personas in there where, I've got a persona for helping me with certain parts of the business that are saved, write a LinkedIn post. I need advice on something. I've got so many things in there, and I literally, there's probably not an hour that goes by where I don't use it for something. And if there's something I need to think of that's new, I'll usually go in there and pick its brain. And so that's been absolutely massive on there. And so Typing Mind is great. I would definitely look it up, and it's cheap. And it's a great tool and one of the best. And I need to show you probably later after.
Awesome. Yeah, it's just it's just a common theme that I've seen. It's just like I don't want to say like the younger generation knows how to run circles. I think it's the older generation knows how to just like grunt work until you succeed. The generational difference is there's a ton of technology that you can utilize to superhuman yourself so that way you
Mhm.
can also succeed and spend more time with your family.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of these tools, like my wife is like, "You haven't taken a call in a while, or you're not really on working that much." And I was like, "Look, I've got all these things running in the background, 24/7, reaching out to candidates, not spamming them, but reaching out, getting conversations. When they respond, I'll grab my phone and respond and have a conversation with them. Like it's pretty easy, and you can do everything from your phone, which is great. But combine that with automations, like I said, I went like a month and a half working like 5 hours a week, like once a day kind of deal. And so, yeah, it's a lot different.
That's awesome. Well, before we move over to the quick fire questions, is there anything else that you'd love to share with the listeners about your background, your success, and your story?
So I think the biggest thing would be just like, you don't have to be good at something and just like embrace the suck, which a lot of people say, no matter what it is, it's recruiting. And number one, you just need to pick something. I think the biggest lesson I've learned in life was the one thing. It's a book. I forget who it's by. But basically the premise is you focus on one thing. You can't accomplish anything if you're trying to do 50 different things at one time. And so if you can give it 6 months, a year, 2 years, 3 years, focusing on one thing, eventually it'll end up being working out, and you'll reach that goal of whatever it is. Like as long as you just stay focused, tunnel vision, and don't go all over the place. Oh, I need to do this business. I need to do that. Because if you're all over the place, working on 10 businesses, you're going to be 10 years down the road and you're still not working for yourself. And so I think focusing on one thing is the biggest thing for sure.
Awesome. And now for the quick fire questions. Um, what advice would you give to a brand new recruiter that's just starting out in the industry?
So advice for a brand new recruiter, I think listening to the right advice would be number one. There's some bad advice out there that did set me back for sure. Um, I think honestly, there's a couple books that they should read. They should read $100 Million Offers by Alex Hermosi. Specifically the part where he talks about picking your market and niche. That is going to save you so much time. I'm not the best at sales. I don't have an organized sales call, but since I'm in the right market and niche, and I've done everything that he needs to do in there, that's helped me out so much. So don't be a generalist. Nobody cares if you're a generalist or not. Be specialized. Later down the line, when you have 50 employees, sure, go do something else and expand your niche. But you need to specialize first. That's be the absolute first thing. And then if you are full time, build your personal brand on LinkedIn. I could talk for 5 hours about this. It's made my life so much easier. like I just signed a client for a retainer for 25 grand a month for 12 months, and she emailed me on LinkedIn wanting to work with me. So like there's opportunities out there on LinkedIn, and it's just been the absolute biggest thing. But if you don't niche down the right way, niching down the right way, read $100 million offers, and then building that brand on putting your brand on LinkedIn and any platform you can is huge.
Awesome. And what advice would you give to experienced recruiters that have been in the game a bit longer than you?
I think probably the same thing. Like if you're having issues and you've been around the same revenue for the last couple of years, have you been in it at least 5 years or so, and you're kind of confused on what's going on? Everybody else is having the success, and okay, you're just a logistics and supply chain recruiter. Niche down, build a personal brand, and then also, what are you doing every single day? You probably need to buy back your time some sort of way. I just hired a VA that is an executive assistant, and she does all the stuff that I freak out about and want to do that doesn't make any money. And so she does all the organizing of our SOPs. She transcribes all of them, summarizes them. Right now, she's actually looking for podcasts for me to get on for in my industry and making a list of them and their contact stuff to get on. Like, you need to buy back your time, stop doing accounting stuff, get somebody to do that, hire some recruiters. And I guess the first step would be if you're going to do that, hire something that's going to get your time back, not somebody that's going to scale your business. Because if you're really good at one thing and you hire somebody for the other thing, you're still going to be working a lot because you didn't buy back the stuff that's taking the majority of your time up that isn't making you money. And so I would say do that for sure, but which I learned from the book, Buy Back Your Time, which everybody should read.
It's a good book. I'm actually listening to it right now during my
Yeah,
runs.
it's great.
What advice would you give to somebody that's looking at building their LinkedIn brand?
Yeah, on branding, it's pretty simple. Keep it straightforward. You want to like call out the exact person that you're trying to help. And so, like I said earlier, 1,000 times, pick your niche. Like I'm in freight brokerage, my title on there, everybody knows freight broker recruiter. They look it up online. I'm showing up on LinkedIn. Okay. They know exactly what I'm doing. I've probably had 100 or so messages where I'll ask them, hey, why did you add me? And they say, oh, well, I looked up freight broker recruiter and you popped up. Okay. That doesn't help if it just says logistics and supply chain recruiter, but I'm specializing in freight brokerage. Like that doesn't do anything. And so that's really big. Put a color behind your face on there. On your profile picture, people remember you. I'm the purple guy. I was on LinkedIn for like 2 months, went to a conference and people were like, you're that purple guy, aren't you? I'm like, yeah, I'm the purple guy. And it was weird that, in short 2 months, I've been able to do that. I would take Justin, I think his name Justin Welsh. He's got like $150 personal branding course that explains everything super in depth, and it's great. Have you taken it before?
I
It's
have, yeah.
great. Yeah, it's great, and it dumbs it down to where it's super simple how you can generate your ideas, and comments are huge. I ask people when they add me, like, "Hey, thanks for connecting. Was there any reason you added me?" And they say, "Oh, I found you from so and so's comment or this." And comments are probably honestly bigger than branding. When you combine the both, it's huge. And so it's pretty simple. Just network, post on LinkedIn, make it really obvious what they're doing, what you're doing there, and people will find you.
I've heard a few people recently, like the LinkedIn experts, talk about how important commenting is right now.
Mhm.
Like, is that, you said it's been having a huge impact on your growth and people seeing you.
Yeah. Yeah. Commenting on other creators' posts. I have a folder on my Chrome it's called engagement, and it's got like 100 or so people on there by the people that are most in my niche and have the most amount of followers and engagement. I mean, you go in there, it doesn't always have to be something insightful. Like you don't have to write the most thought out comment. Doing it is just half the battle, right? I'll go through spurts where I don't do it for a couple weeks. I get back into it, and it always helps. And so to do that, just find people in your niche that are posting a lot. All the creators, reach out to them, like their stuff, comment on it. They love it, and then people go on your comments, even if you're just laughing or saying haha or something, or responding to it simply, nothing insightful. They see, okay, Parker Chaney, freight broker recruiter, right under with my title. And it's super simple. It doesn't say your favorite recruiter or whatever it is. Like, no, it says freight broker recruiter. You're going to know exactly what I do from my comment. And you click on my profile. I have hundreds of views every single week. But yeah, commenting's huge.
So has there been a book that you have read that has had a huge impact on your career and your business?
There's been a couple, and I wrote down a few. to make sure I don't talk about all 70 of them that I've read in the past couple of months. $100 million offers for sure. I know if you've had a couple people on your podcast recommend that. But the one I mentioned earlier, the one thing, I think it's by Gary Keller, if I'm not mistaken, talking about you have to pick one thing, you have to tunnel vision on it, you have to stay focused, you have to work on it every single day, no matter what it is. Literally, no matter what it is, just focus on one thing and have tunnel vision. And I think another big book combined with Buy Back Your Time was Who Not How, explaining that you don't know how to do everything. You don't have to know that. There's somebody out there that can do it. And it's not necessarily how you're supposed to do it, it's who can do it for you. And so I think that really understanding that, and I brought on a partner who's going to own a piece of the business that she's really good in the account management side, which I am. I just hate getting on calls. It's not for me. Like you give me one call and my brain's fried the rest of the day. Like I don't book anything till after 3 o'clock now. She's been taking a lot of that off my plate, and so those books have been absolutely amazing. So
And you've listed a bunch of tools in our conversation already, a bunch of different software. Do you have like an absolute favorite that you would love to share, at least for the quick fire section?
mhm. So I think, like I mentioned earlier, Typing Mind was the absolute best. It's typingmind.com. You can buy it for like it's like $30, and then you plug in your own Chat GPT API, which is free to get. And then after a month, you get GPT-4, and then you're set. You can use as much as you want. I mean, I'm spending a couple $100 a month just doing that, but it's not limited or anything like that. But I literally use it for everything. Like I wrote my ideas about what to talk on the podcast and had it summarize it for me. I do it for literally everything. I think that is the absolute biggest one, and nobody really knows about it. I don't know why, but it's amazing. It's way better than using just a regular GPT for sure.
Awesome. Has there been something that you feel that has been a huge part of your own personal success?
Yeah. Like I said before, having a kid, 100%. Not everybody. This is not life advice. Don't have one if you don't need one. But having a kid, back against the wall, and then just the not overconfidence, but being convicted that this is going to work out as long as I keep doing it is huge, absolutely massive. And if I didn't convince myself that it's going to work out, it probably wouldn't have, because I probably wouldn't have keep pushing forward. And then also, I've always kind of been over positive with how I think things are going to go, and it drives my wife absolutely insane because I can get laid off twice, and I'm like, hey, things are going to be okay. Like, what? We're not going to lose the house. Okay. I'm going to be able to get another job. I have a skill that people want. This just is very unfortunate for the moment. Like, I'm not stressed out about it at all. And so I think that's kind of not necessarily something you can teach, you can learn over time, I think. But I've always just been like, you know, if if something really bad happens, I'm going to wait for it to really be bad before I'm going to worry about it. And a big thing with that is I think that people always assume that whatever's happening to them at that moment is horrible, but if you look at it on a longer timeline, that it's actually like the best thing that was happening to you at that moment, you just didn't know it. And so I say last year was like the worst time of my life, but also the best crucial life-changing time of my life, where I got laid off twice. I'm having a kid, losing insurance. This is the worst. Other than having a kid was the best. And at the time I thought, this is horrible. This is absolutely horrible. And I don't know how I'm going to get through this, but turns out like, man, I'm so thankful that happened. uh, Life would be so different if I still had a job, and I wouldn't be working for myself. I might have eventually gotten tired of it, but just being able to know that whatever is happening that's bad in the moment, life always gets a lot better right after. And so knowing that it's going to get better, and having that positive outlook.
And here's actually a curiosity question I'm sure the listeners would love to hear. You went from zero for 8 months to now consistently 50K months and growing. What does your day look like? Or
So
how do you plan
r-
your day?
yeah, I put I try to keep just three things on my plate every single day. Right now, trying to make sure the foundation of the business is great, trying to hire like 3 to 5 more people before the end of the year, virtual assistants, of course. Um, and not all just recruiters, maybe one or two, and then some operational side to buy back even more of my time so I can do what's fun. And right now, we're actually adding two different services to our business. Another thing that Hormozy talks about in his book is if you can solve as many problems as you can for your customers, they're just going to love you even more, and you're going to make more money off of it. And so after I got somebody else doing the recruiting part of it, somebody else doing the account management, buying back some of my time. I've got the executive assistant, um, adding other things to our service. And so, like the retainer I was telling you about, we implemented an ATS for them that they didn't have. We built it out for them, and it didn't take us too long, but they're a $3 billion company and have no internal ATS. And I'm like, guys, what is going on here? Like, I don't understand. And so I explained to them how many deals they're losing, how much better their life's going to be for it. And they're so excited for it. And it's going live next week. You have something to say? You're good?
No, I was going to say, I kind of wanted to dig into that for a second. Like, many of us, when we have our recruiter hats on, we think, contingent recruiting, retained recruiting, and, engagement recruiting or staffing. But you're finding different solutions that you could charge, like that are still technically recruiting, but not just the placement things, but and you can make money off that.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I'm thinking that it's a great client. I love working with them. There's a couple things that they could do better. If I could make their life better, we're enjoying working together, we're having success, they're paying me lots of money, and I see something that I could easily fix, I'm gonna do that for them. And so getting on the calls with them, it was like, hey, my goal is to be an extension of you guys, not to be just a contractor that you hire when you need somebody. Like, I want to be in the weeds with you guys. What is it that you guys are doing right now? Do you guys have an ATS? How are you tracking all these candidates? Is there anything we can help you with how to do it better? Like, do you need another recruiter? And they're like, right now we don't have an ATS. And I'm like, how in the world are you doing that? Like, I'm sending them like 30 candidates a month probably, and they hire like 3 to 5. And so like, this doesn't make any sense. We need to figure this out. And so doing that for them has been absolutely crucial. And then I just had a call today for a different service for AI personalized emails and outreach for basically lead gen. A big pain point of my customers is they need sales guys because the economy's down. They want income producers. I bring in the revenue, but it's hit and miss with the guys that they say they can do really good stuff. And then the timeline to see any sort of return is usually like 6 to 12 months on them before they're paying for themselves. And they're paying them 60, 80, 90K, sometimes up to 120. And so ended up actually meeting a guy a couple weeks ago and have really hit it off with him and kind of doing a trial one with one of our customers, meeting again on Monday. And they've been wanting a sales guy. And so this is going to save them a lot of money and add about 10 to 15K in monthly recurring revenue for at least 90 days is what I told them. And so adding that to it, just whatever way I can help them. There's ways to make money. There's so many ways to make money. People just don't figure it out. And so, as like I said, as many pain points from your customers as you can figure out and solve for them, they're going to love you. They're going to pay you a lot of money, and your life's going to be a lot better.
Right. And I love that you share that because like in the GovCon space, there's challenges and there's stuff that we do like outside of just placements that are brings in business for or money for our business. So, but love that you're sharing something like, I mean, this is the freight world we're talking about.
Yeah.
So if you're able to figure that out in the freight world, what else can us recruiters do in other places to help be a better solution driver for our clients? Mhm.
So I think number one, having an expertise and authority in one area with being niche down and being able to talk to their talk their language and know exactly what they're going through. It helps if you've gone through it, of course. And so I kind of knew a lot going in that this is kind of how most places are run. I know you guys don't have any training in place. You're doing $300-400 million and there's no training. You got high turnover. I know what to fix that. Anyone can look up online how to stop or how to turn down turnover, you know? And so there's just a lot of things you can do. I think the biggest thing would be is you can't do it alone. Don't think that, okay, I can do 500K billing by myself. This is great, but in order to bring on another service, you're going to need more people and be able to leverage them. And so bringing on other team members and investing a little bit money can be scary at times, but you've got to get over that hump if you want to be able to do all these other service offerings. I wouldn't be able to do it myself, that's for sure.
Awesome. Great. And I love that you finish it off saying you would not be able to do it all yourself because many of us try to be Superman or Superwomen and I can do it all.
That's right.
So, everything that you know now, and this is like my favorite question, everything that you know now, if you could literally sit down, have a cup of coffee with yourself when you just started your recruiting journey, what advice would you give yourself?
I think maybe don't be too hard on yourself because I did go 8 months without it. Um, I think that since I did end up continuing to push through it and get through it every single day and worked on it day in and day out, that's probably would have been the advice I gave myself. But since that's what I did, but probably just like don't be too hard on yourself. Like, no, it's coming, and look on it a little bit more positive for sure. That it's going to work out, and you'll see the fruits of your labor. It might not be as soon as you want, that's for sure, but it'll happen.
Awesome. Well, Parker, before I let you go, is there anything else that you would love to share with the listeners?
Yeah, so I've got a couple things down here that I wanted to share. Um, that I mentioned earlier. If you can be confused, the longer you can be confused, the better the outcome will be, and the bigger the fruits of your labor will be. Just continue to push through it is the absolute biggest thing, and have confidence in yourself. Put yourself out there. Nobody cares about you. They're not going to remember if you get embarrassed. Nobody cares. No one cares. Like no one's going to remember. And it just you just gotta keep doing it. Like, it's not fun. Nobody actually enjoys going from 0 to 1, but going from 1 to 10 is so much easier than 0 to 1. That's the hardest part. And so just know if you put in 8 months, a year, a couple years in, it's eventually gonna happen. And I know 0 to 8 months didn't take me terribly long. It's still fairly long, but the journey I started on trying to figure things out was 5 years ago, reading those sales books. And so everybody's seeing, okay, hey, Parker's already here. This is crazy. How to do that in such a short amount of time? Like, no, I started doing stuff to improve myself barely every single day 5 years ago. Like, this is not overnight. Like, I've been working on myself for a very long time. And so just staying consistent and pushing through.
Awesome. Well, man, I can't wait for people to hear this podcast just because we hear all the stories of people just busting out of the gate and just like, life is great. I made like $700,000, but I was a slow starter. Yeah. 8 months without a single placement as you started your recruiting journey. I mean, I know the listeners have heard this a few times, but a few months in, they sat me down. They're like, well, you suck.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
That's great. I've heard
you
that.
suck. And, it's the recruiting journey, the recruiting industry is such a great place for anybody to be in and for anyone to succeed. So thank you, Parker. And for the listeners, keep crushing it, guys.
Thank you, man.